Happy Monday, mate. How you doing?
Doing well, man. How are you?
I'm probably better than you are, to be honest. I don't know that I love the optimism. I love the optimism. For those that don't know, maybe give the listeners a little bit of an update as to how you're traveling.
Uh, COVID positive guy right here.
Absolutely. How you feeling? Talk me through the process. What's happened?
So Monday now. Last Wednesday. So what's that? 5 days ago, or so.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, just had like a little runny nose, little tickle in the throat, and we are under a bit of a time pressure. And I don't know if it's the same in state, but in SA, the day you have a test, if it's positive, you get released 10 days later. And we had a wedding or have a wedding coming up. So it was like a bit of a time crunch for getting a positive test so we could get released on the day. And just went like out of like precaution or whatever, not expecting, like I thought we were just being stupid.
Yeah.
And we went and we like got a hot chocolate on the way and we were in and out in 10 minutes and like went to sleep not thinking anything of it. And then got a text in the morning, you're COVID positive. and
That's nuts.
and I just deteriorated. Like not from the news of getting
Emotionally, I was broken. Yeah.
I was distraught. I just man, as the hours went on, like I woke up on Thursday morning because I got the test Wednesday night. Woke up
Yeah.
Thursday morning, felt all right. Got up pretty early, had a coffee or whatever, and then just deteriorated. It was insane. Like by the hour, and by that night, like yeah, it was terrible. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday was bedridden. Was like headache, like terrible fever. I was sweating all night. Had the chills, like the teeth rattling chills, but I was sweating at the same time. It was horrible.
Dude,
It's
I
like a
hate
serious flu, man.
that. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm coming good now. I'm a little nasally now. I think I'm always a little bit nasally. But I'm more nasally right now than ever. I'm really trying to like use my nose to breathe, but it's pretty tough.
You
And
got that
and I'm
husky $6 a minute voice.
yeah, hopefully that sticks around. But
Make some coin. Yeah.
but I'm fully addicted to strepsils right now. Like any drop of the hat, like even if I have a headache, I'm like, yeah, that I'll lemon strepsils straight in.
They're
I
a good
love them.
time. They're a good time.
And it's kind of progressed now into just like a bit of a head cold, brutal cough the last couple of days. I was up all night coughing last night, which is so annoying. Anything that just like affects my sleep, honestly, is the worst thing for me.
Yeah.
I could handle whatever during the day, but just like let me sleep a full night. I hate
Mm.
being up unwell at night. So for the last like 4 days or whatever, I've just been sweating and coughing and just been pretty gross. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Is it
just
like
me.
it's pure fully gone? It's maintained at that level. Like you still got the shakes, or how you traveling with that?
No. Yeah, first 3 days were super rough,
Yeah.
and I've just progressively gotten better as the days go on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was seriously bad for the first 3 days. I was like barely staying conscious. I was like up for an hour, in bed for 4 hours, up for another half an hour, in bed for another couple, like just sleeping and just so flat. And then gradually as the days went on, I felt very bad for the first 3 days, and then now it's like progressed into this head cold kind of chesty thing, which is manageable because I can get a full night's sleep most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But last night I was just up coughing, which is super annoying. But I'm feeling better and better each day, and I've still got 5 days of quarantine. So hopefully by tomorrow I'll be good to exercise and do some stuff at home. So looking forward to that.
That's gnarly, man. That literally sounds exactly the same as what Zoe had. I think she like was feeling okay on a Tuesday, went pretty downhill Tuesday night, late Tuesday, I think, or early Wednesday, got a message that like one of her friends had got it, who she'd seen. Bang, got it to like just out of nowhere, just hits you. And then I think she had it pretty bad for 4 days, and then on the mend, but sounds like the same. Slept for 18 to 20 hours a day, literally for about 3 days. And she sleeps a lot anyway, but probably not 20 hours. So that's pretty gnarly. But
yeah, man, it's heavy.
Fingers crossed come good soon. Emotionally,
next couple of days.
Okay.
I look tired, but I think I get pretty bad bags anyway most of the time. Just a hard worker,
Yeah.
But next couple of days I'll be sweet. Yeah, it was crazy how fast it came on because I felt I was asymptomatic all day Wednesday. Right, I even worked that morning, and then went to footy, and then on the drive home from footy. So I finished footy at like whatever time, 7:30, and then by 8 o'clock, we were like, oh, okay, let's go get a test.
Yeah.
And then slept all right that night. And then the next morning I was just destroyed.
That's it.
Yeah, it was terrible.
How'd your missus go? She got it?
No, she was negative. So her test came back neg. And then we sent her off to her sister's place, who she and her partner and her kid have just had it. So they're like sweet. They're not close contacts, whatever. So they can just do like their normal life stuff. So yeah, 10 days solo with just me and Chesley, the fur king.
How's he doing?
He's
sniffling. He's up all night.
Oh yeah. Well, he was up all night last night. He's had like a little ear infection or something, poor little bugger, but he's okay. I think he's just bored, and I feel bad because I can't take him out. So I'm playing with him. Well, for the first 3 days, I had no energy. Like I couldn't even, like I wasn't able to like mess around with him or whatever. Like I couldn't even throw the ball down the hallway. It was like stuffed. But last few days we've been in the garden and like stuffing around and doing that stuff. So I think he's feeling better now. Yeah. Lots of bones, lots of dentist sticks, lots of schmackos. Just try and like keep him happy. But he's playing right there, like giving me the side eye. So
take
unimpressed.
Me for a walk.
He doesn't get it. I mean, maybe he does. Maybe he understands that I'm unwell, but yeah, I feel bad for him.
I reckon they know. They animals are pretty smart. They check in with their owners and know when their owners are pretty sad. That's why they might reflect that or be a little bit more cozy. Hopefully, anyway. Hopefully, he's just not a pest and just chasing walks all the time.
Yeah, no, he loves his walkies. But actually, I shouldn't say that too loud. Otherwise, he'll get up and about it.
Yeah.
He's all right. He's all good. No, so hopefully another couple of days and then we'll be sweet and we'll be back into it. I'm looking forward to spending a good few days of planning for the next like quarter or so. Maybe to like mid-year, and get some real good plans down for my own training and for the footy guys and for business and whatnot, and actually use this time to do stuff rather than just like kind of wallowing in it, you need that time to recover, but eventually you just have to kind of pull your head out and actually make it worthwhile, like having this time off, because you're going to have it off regardless. You may as well make the most of it.
Mate, you're telling me, like, literally got back from Perth when Zoe had it, then isolated for 7 days, got out for 1 day, when managed to train at the gym, and then that day we got a brand new housemate who's staying with us just for a little bit, and the next day he tested positive, so I'm a close contact, so I had another 7 days, and then today, first day back out. So I think I've been out for 2 days total since being back, and I've been back in Adelaide for 2 weeks. So yeah, man, like you've got to make the most of the time. Like there's no point wallowing in it or obviously I'm not sick. Well, not obviously, but for those that do care, that are listening, got on my rat test that are negative. Love sticking things up my nose and down my throat. Yeah. No.
That's kind of loaded. You can't just gloss over that.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Moving on.
For those who don't know, PCR tests and rat tests have very similar traits. No, they're not bad.
I underestimated the PCR. No, it was terrible.
Is that your first one you had?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Dude, you're lucky. I've had too many to count.
Horrible. Just, dude, I don't even know. It felt like it was touching the back of my head.
You have a bit of a gag reflex?
No gags. Not too bad on that. I'm kind of blessed with that, I think. So, just genetics, I suppose. But speaking of genetics, I've got like a pretty big snout. So I think, they had to use like the thickness of a straw to take my test rather than just like one of those like little bud things.
Actual?
Nah, they didn't. They took it. Come on.
They had me going for a second there. I'm just like a straw. How big is it?
Just dead pet. Nah, but it was still horrible. It was still like made your eyes water, and
you get good and bad nurses. Nah, you get good and bad nurses. I feel. I reckon you have some that are just like up there and they count 1 to 1,000,000 with all the Mississippis. And they're twirling it around. Yeah. Then you got ones that are just like, man, that'll do. And you're just like, oh, where were you last week when I needed you? Like,
I had this guy like fishing for brain cells, I reckon.
Yeah, that's the nose is just like, kind of gets you tickling your brain.
Yeah, the throat was fine. The nose was just bad, real bad.
No. But good to hear you're on the mend, man. It's thanks, man. Not fun, and I guess you've got it kind of under your belt and got all the antibodies. Funnily enough, though, just to touch on it, I'm not sure if you're I don't know. We'll see how we go. But Zoe had only been double vaxxed, and so like symptomatically, like that really hit her. And our current house guest has been triple vaxxed, and he has literally barely felt it.
Really?
So I'm positive. Yeah, I feel a little bit. I had a bit of a scratchy throat for a couple of days, but that's about it. And now, he's now can't get out to the end of this week. Like currently doing yoga on the deck, and just having, not a great time, obviously. Like probably just still a little bit there, but it's like not the shivers, the shakes, the fevers and the flus and all that sort of stuff. So, not that I'm pro or anti, but I'm quite, in a very real world like for like. One had pretty bad symptoms, the other didn't. So personally, I think as soon as I get out, I'm going to be getting that booster, and hopefully that just subsides any of those symptoms. So like I say, sleep is for the strong. We need our sleep.
Yeah, that's right. I'm definitely double vaxxed. I hadn't got my booster.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the difference. I don't know. But them saying that it reduces the symptoms, I think that's just like person to person, because I can't imagine it being any worse. It was honestly, probably the most sick I've ever been.
Yeah, wow.
Really, really bad.
That's gnarly.
And just for days too, like most of the time it would just be like a 24-hour thing for me. Like I'm really bad, and then I just come good. Whereas with this, it was really bad for 72 hours. I'm still pretty bad, as you can hear in my voice, but nowhere near what I was like. Like I would not have been able to do this. I couldn't even sit here. Like I wouldn't be able to wear a shirt. I would just be sweating through it, but also so cold at the same time. I can't imagine it being any worse than what it was, but maybe it's the booster that's the difference. Who knows?
Well, hopefully it adds some layer of protectiveness or whatever that is. Otherwise, what's the point? But a lot of people say, what's the point in general? But we won't get into the politics of vaccination status.
Let's not.
I just wanted to mention as well, for those, because Luke did just say that he's sitting here potentially without a shirt, dripping in sweat. We're now on YouTube, so all these podcasts. Should you
That's
want
a great segue?
If you're more of a visual listener, you want to kind of check out, or you like to listen on YouTube, or you've got maybe YouTube Premium and you want to listen along and maybe check it every so often, feel free to check us out on YouTube, the TLDR podcast, and I think on Spotify now. Not that we're going to pull our podcast from Spotify just yet, but if you're wanting to give us a review on there, just a little plug for the podcast, that definitely helps us get all the nice, warm and fluffies, as well as I think we've got a Facebook page where you can give us a rating as well. So just thought I'd give us a little bit of a plug there.
Great plug. How do you, when you listen or watch your podcast, is it just audio, or do you do video as well?
No, I'm a big audio person, because I'll just listen to it as a walking or running and that sort of stuff. So the odd one, like there'll be people for me that I will really want to watch, and I would have listened to, say, a Rogan or some sort of podcast, and they want to show you something. It's like, oh, for those that are listening, this is what's happening. I think he did one with David Blaine, where David Blaine swallowed some frogs, and I was like, I want to see that.
Yeah, that was wild.
So I'm like, you can't. Listening to someone swallow a frog is very different to watching someone swallow a frog. So I do enjoy it, but it's more like retrospective. It's like, or retroactively, just I've listened. Let me go and see what they were talking about, I guess. What about you?
It really depends. If I'm on a walk or a run or something, just audio, obviously.
Yeah.
But if I'm like sitting at the desk, like doing work or something, I love to have it just there, because I've got a couple of screens. Having one, just the podcast of like Joe or Lex or Jordan Peterson or whatever, like actually, because I really enjoy watching people communicate as well. I think you get so much more out of it with their body language and how they're interpreted, I suppose, or how you're interpreting what they're saying. Yeah. Because especially people like Lex Friedman is a good example of that, I think. And he's a Russian native guy, but he's American Russian. And but he's super monotonous and really mellow and never really like excitable. So you could take him for someone that's just not interested. But I think he's just a really deep thinker. He's a science guy. He's like an AI. I think he worked at like MIT or something. He was like a professor at MIT. He's a pretty young dude, like probably like 30, maybe something like that. Yeah. But he's just not very excitable. So he could come across as super disinterested or just like kind of detached from the conversation or something like that. But really, he's just like such a deep thinker that maybe he puts more emphasis into the words that he's using rather than how he's saying them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like an example of that. Whereas someone that's maybe a little bit more like descriptive with their words, like Joe Rogan is a good example of that, where he really tries to cater for the audio only market, where he'll describe things that are happening. Like if they've got the screen up and they're like looking at, I don't know, something to do with like Egypt, like the part of the pyramids or whatever, like he actively tries to describe what they're looking at, so the audio only listeners can still get this full.
Can be there. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it really depends. I really like the video as well, though. Definitely.
Well, there you go. So if you're chasing some podcasts to watch, Luke, feel free to jump on youtube.com and search the TLDR podcast. You'll be able to watch yourself even more than you already do.
I've got about 15 mirrors up around the house, every corner of the house.
Just always been able to catch a glance. How do I look from this angle? I did want to kind of get a bit of, I don't know if I've got a bit of feedback from last week's podcast from a few different people, and I just definitely found it insightful. It's a topic that I think people around our age that are wanting to learn more about, not just finance in general, but investment strategies and the idea of putting your money in either various or just tripling down on one area, but having a full scope of knowledge so you can do that. And I think Ryan, spoke very clearly and made it very easy for even us people like us to understand, super basic. Sure. And I think some of the big takeaways were around that inflation, and then the market cap of, not the market cap, the actual cap on Bitcoin itself as a store of value and things like that. And people can invest in that. And then, currently inflation is massively high. So, putting your money anywhere, most places, not anywhere, I would say 80%, 90% of places, you're going to lose money in it. You're losing your purchasing power. And I definitely got some feedback from people around that, and just like, oh, okay, so that's what that provides. Maybe they're not going to pull all their life savings and pour it into the crypto world. But it was good to get that sort of feedback from people, because it's something that are the two things that I definitely took away from it, as well as the different avenues to learn about crypto and Bitcoin, and the white pages, as well as Raoul Powell, as his like finance background and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that was just some of the feedback I got. So super appreciative to Ryan, and I'm definitely going to be getting him back on. And I'm not sure if if our podcast was the catalyst, but we've seen a bit of green in the crypto market since then. So maybe it's all of our listeners just dumping money into crypto and turning the tides. So if that was you, thank you from all of us.
Yeah, it's been good to see a little bit of green in the last few days. To be honest, I hadn't checked it, and I think that's just like when you see red constantly, you don't want to look at it. Ignorance is bliss. But yeah, seeing some bounce off the bottom. I don't know. I'm just paraphrasing. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But number goes up means good.
Means happy. Means happy, Luke. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll just keep trickling into that, and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll leave the crypto chat to Ryan McKay.
Yeah, exactly. He'll definitely be popping back on. Wanted to probably dig a bit more on that BJJ stuff as well.
Oh, dude, 100%.
One of the things I definitely did want to talk about today with you is that, we're 5 or so weeks into the new year, and I think we spoke a lot towards the back end of last year, and even, the first week or two of this year. And I think a lot of people do that. They do the reflection at the end of, 1 year, and the resetting of targets and goals and accountability and measures and all that sort of stuff to ensure the new year is a success, whether you call it what do they call it, checkpoint, or whether you call it a milestone, or whether you call it a New Year's resolution. A lot of people do that. A lot of people set goals, things they want to achieve. And with the new year comes change, and some people are opposed to change. Some people are just welcome change, especially in different areas or different stages of life. And one thing that for me personally, stepping I think doing those half marathons this year for me it has some other meaning. It's not necessarily about doing them a half marathon itself. It's about staying accountable to myself and towards a target, and instilling discipline in my own personal life, I guess, because it's not a financial, it's not a workplace, it's nothing around that. It's just purely for me, and trying to create a disciplined habit around that is something that's quite powerful, and I've seen already be powerful just purely in the last 2 weeks. As an example, I've recently recruited a coach. So I've actually got someone doing all the programming for me. Shout out to JC if you're listening. For a couple of reasons. Like, I definitely have the potential knowledge and intellect to program for my own running development. However, I know that for a fact, one of the things that I learned last year was around single point of focus and having just one target or one thing to focus your skill set on, to niche down. There's all those buzzwords. I actually learned that from a friend of mine or an ex-colleague, Matt Tupper. So thanks to Tups. Well, not learned, I definitely heard it from him. And it's something that like really, really resonated probably later in the year as well. So it's like, allow the specialists in each area to specialize. And I'm not a specialist when it comes to my own programming or my own running. I could get someone who is more of a specialist in that area so that I can focus all my time and attention on the areas that I want to either become a specialist or specialize even further. And I found that already, even in the programming that's been delivered, to be super beneficial. And I'm like hyped. I'm hyped around getting a new week of programming. I'm hyped around chatting to him about it, getting feedback. And because I'm on obviously that level of understanding human physiology and biomechanics and the way my body operates, and the way most bodies operate, we can take, I'm learning as well. So obviously if I was to program for myself, I'd be learning by doing, but I'm trying to fast track that education by getting someone else or someone external to go, cool, this is my goal. These are my timelines, program for me. And as an example, like there's things he's put in, which I wouldn't have even thought of, as just like hamstring compression work, glute compression work, just to increase the amount of power that you can elicit. And that's all post-run work. So it's not just go for a run at a certain heart rate or do X and then, go for a long run on a Sunday, do some like, overspeed work here. Like it's actually specific, what are they called? Stimuli that will be implemented over a period of time to ensure that, the longevity of my body maintains. And even better than that, I've actually not pulled up sore, touch wood, at all. So for me, I think just reflecting on those last 5 weeks or the first 5 weeks of this year, I definitely felt initially, and I think I even spoke on, no, I'm going to program myself for this first one and learn that way and blah, blah, blah. And but I know for a fact that my brain has been pulled in too many different directions and I'm not able to do that. But that was at the potential of like risking me not meeting that goal. So go and find a specialist, find someone you're accountable to and get them to hold you to that target. And I've just reaped the benefits massively already. And it's only been a couple of weeks. Well, not even, 5 weeks into the year, like I say. So it was just a realization I had. And I'm not sure how you're traveling with some of the markers that you had set for yourself. But even little things like just train this morning, first day of freedom in a little while. And, those percentage of body weight targets that we set at the back end of last year, everything I'm now doing is based off that. So I'm not, I could have definitely gone a little bit lighter, or like, at the back end of the second half of the workout, it's like, oh, you should be going heavy here. And it's like, it's not my goal. So yes, I would have last year. It's like, cool, I need to go as heavy as I can all the time, not redline it, but just like push my body. It's like, no, my priorities have shifted. I need to make sure that the targets I'm trying to hit are going to be met. Everything else comes secondary to that as a supplementary or an accessory exercise. So yeah, lots of words there from me for those listening. But I just want to put that out there and get your, I know your thoughts on it. I know that, it's been a whack in the face in the past 5 days with your COVID stuff, but I'm curious to hear your feedback or insight on that. And then maybe how you're traveling with kind of the things that you've put into practice since January.
Well, first, I want to find out from you what you think the main difference is in terms of having someone program for you or you programming for yourself. Is it having someone there that's like you're essentially paying them to have common ground with you, well, I'm assuming you're paying them, maybe you're not, or at least you're like hiring someone or employing someone to program for you and then be there essentially to talk about it. Like for me, that's really motivating. Like if you're on the same path with someone else, it's really motivating to bounce off of each other, to see the kinds of paces that you're working together, working individually, but kind of compare against each other, or like have that idea from someone else's brain on the table that you're just kind of like completing rather than you creating it and completing it. It doesn't have that same kind of satisfaction, I think. Is it more so like the accountability, or is it having someone there doing it for you for like another like level of motivation?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to be pretty honest. I haven't programmed in about 2 years, 2.5 years, anything. So I can program for sure, but I'm not up to date with, the latest way to do things. The guy who's programming for me actually has completed triathlons, so has a bit of an understanding about longer distance and endurance-based programming. I can go and run a distance quite comfortably. Like I ran 4 days back to back, all upwards of 7Ks, which I haven't done in years. But then it's that knowledge and intellect that's that next level. So it's not a case of, it's like I've got, say, a base or just above a base level understanding of like how to program for running specifically. Like if I was to program for strength work, I'd probably do my own, but I've got a base level understanding that. So I can only get to that level unless I invest time and energy into researching, right? I don't have the time or energy to research more. So I'm going to sit at this level. Whereas I can have someone up here, like for those that are watching on YouTube, welcome. I can have someone up here who can then help me bridge that gap. So that's what you pay for. Like you pay for an expert. As an example, like perfect example, why does a sprinter have a coach? Like why does an Olympic level sprinter have a coach? They can sprint really fast, but they might not understand all the mechanics and all that sort of stuff to the level the coach does. The coach doesn't have the body to do it, or doesn't have the drive or the goal to do it physically, but they've got the intent to help the person to get there. So it's literally that. So I've got a level of understanding that's probably more than, the person next to me, depending which room I'm in. But I'm going to change rooms, and I'm going to be in a room where I have the least amount of knowledge, and then learn from everyone else in that area. So I'm getting an education as I go. And then when it comes to, picking apart the program, I can do that as an individual, and I can go, cool, I wonder why that's in there. And he provides a lot of notes. It's not just, so one of the post run exercises was a Tabata of high knees. So I've just gone for a 7 or 8K run, and then do 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off of high knees, rest for a little bit, then do a Tabata of skipping. And it's all to do with like calf and ankle stiffness, which is like, again, makes sense. But I wouldn't go like, I just ran 7Ks. You think I'm accountable to myself to go and do like some high knees and some skipping? Absolutely not. Like I'd be like, cool, come home, do a bit of stretching, jump on the couch, watch some golf. I don't know, like it just wouldn't happen. But then if it's programmed in there for you to complete the workout, you have to check that off. So just having that and then breaking it down and learning from that's the main thing. Obviously, financial accountability is probably one of the greatest markers for accountability as well. So paying someone to do something, and that's the business that we're in. I'm more than happy to educate people in my world that want education, but education without application is nothing. So to get the application in there, you need someone to keep you accountable to that. Or if they don't want to apply it, they're going to feel it in their hip pocket. It's the same as me. So he could write a program for me for 13 weeks and I could not run. But that's just more for me. And it needs to be a big enough of a financial burden, I guess, to hold you accountable. And that's me. Not everyone's motivated that way. And regardless of what he's charging me, I would have done it. But I want to be better. So I'm going to pay someone who's better than me to help me get better.
I feel like that extra little bit of like that level that you said that you're here and he's there, it might be even just like experiential understanding of what it takes. I think that's a lot of people can just program stuff. Like people can follow really standard like strength protocol and write this program, but unless you've actually done it yourself, you're not going to have that nuance to it. You're not going to understand like what that stimulus actually feels like to hit 5 sets of 5 at 90%.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, and if you're giving that to someone that hasn't had maybe a certain level of like prior strength training, then they're not going to understand kind of what that stimulus is. And if you're putting in there like rest 60 seconds between each set, then you've completely lost what the outcome should be.
Yeah.
So I suppose the same kind of thing with running is like you can follow like a progressive overload model where you're just like gradually increasing kilometers each week. Maybe it's 500 meters a week, or you're adding 2.5 minutes per week, or whatever it is. But unless you have that understanding, like from an experiential level, you're not going to know when, in your own experience, people need taper weeks or like other supplementary exercises to add on top of that. Or like, this is how I felt when I was at this level after running 7Ks. The last thing that you're going to program for yourself is Tabata high knees and skipping, which makes perfect sense. Like, I wouldn't program that. Like in my mind, it doesn't make sense like straight away, but actually listening to it, like from an ankle stiffness perspective, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think that the biggest gap is just experience in having done it.
Yeah.
I think.
You want to pay someone that's done that time, put the time and energy into the research or the application, which is like, I'm more than happy to in areas that I want to grow and learn. Otherwise, I've got to go and learn all the mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the same. It's the same in business. I've had this conversation with people in business before, and it's like, well, I could definitely get to where they're going. It's going to take me longer unless I recruit. Speaking from like a business coach or whatever, I could learn. I could get to that point where I could teach people, or I could just get to a point, or I could just learn from someone and skip all the mistakes, have all their winnings, find all their wins. So find the way they won, and then apply that to my business. So you can get there without them for sure. But in my opinion, the quicker route is not always better. The quicker route is often better, especially if you've got the finance to invest into that and you're passionate enough to want to learn. Otherwise, I've paid for courses before where I thought I was ready or I thought I was keen on learning that topic. I think we've talked about this with marketing before as well. It's like, I thought I was like, yeah, I need this and blah, blah, blah. Then you come away from it. It's like, I actually don't care. I actually don't care that I've invested. Like, I did a year of a business degree. I had to pay for the whole year. I think I completed 6 months of it in terms of actual units. Some of those units I literally went to the tab. This is a different Tom. I literally went to the tab instead of going to the lectures. And that's on me. I got to pay for those fees back, and that's fine. Yeah. But like, I'd rather find something I'm passionate about, pay the money, learn that way, and apply it. Like I say, education is nothing without application. But yeah, it's a no-brainer from my perspective.
Yeah, I would be interested to do something for myself in that same kind of vein. I think having someone do my Olympic lifting programming or something similar. I just feel like maybe I'm doing this. You don't know what you don't know, and I'm getting results, and I'm getting stronger, and maybe I'm a little weaker after the last 5 days, and for another 5 days, I'm just gonna be at home. Like, I mean, I've got weights and stuff here, but I'm not going to be lifting super, super heavy. But
yeah,
you don't know what you don't know. So maybe it's just a good time to shake stuff up. We're still pretty early in the year. The whole new year, new me thing is maybe still applicable and relevant. And you could go and seek out a coach and I don't say this lightly. It's kind of a cliche, but really a coach can change your life. Like, it's pretty insane the difference that they can have in your mindset, which is really everything in regards to fitness or health in general or nutrition or ideally all of the above.
Yeah.
It really can be life-changing. And I'm not sure if you've had someone like that in business before. It was like, oh my God, I'm so grateful to have met this person and have learned from this person. But like, they're the people that you strive to seek out of like the masses.
Yeah.
And often they come out of like an organic, almost like by coincidence, where you just accidentally meet this person and then it turns out that they're just like this gift to your learning. And that's a kind of an amazing thing. But yeah, I feel like in terms of coaching, yeah, it really can be a massive, profound benefit. Again, if they're a specialist, I think, or even a generalist. Like, I know PTs that go straight out of PT qualifications and they just go into like their Good Life or their Snap Fitness or whatever, and they can change lives straight away.
Yeah.
But I also know people that have been in the industry for like 8 or 10 years that just kind of like rest on their laurels a little bit and kind of expect their shelf life to be the biggest selling point rather than the actual service that they provide. As in, they're kind of resting on the fact they've been in the industry for a decade, and they use that as a selling point rather than actually what they can achieve for you.
I'm curious on that. And this is maybe a little bit off topic, but I'm curious from your perspective, based on exactly what you just said then, because you used to, train and educate PTs. If there was a common theme or a common thread that you would or have noticed as to why some PTs succeed, as you've just said, and why some don't. And I think you mentioned, what is it, like 20% of PTs are still in the industry after a year or whatever it is, once you've
something like that.
Some bizarre number. So people love the idea of being a PT, but don't love the reality of being a PT when it comes to split shifts, early mornings, late nights. They just see all the good stuff online. So I'm curious, coming from your perspective as someone that used to train and educate these guys, could you see a marker in some people when you were coaching them or when you were educating them through that certification process, that you go, cool, I can already pick these two are going to make it, the rest of you aren't? Or not that you'd say that, but do you see a trait or a quality in them?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint, but you can definitely tell. And me and my coworkers, we used to say, you can kind of tell within the first couple of weeks who's going to make it and who isn't of like a 4-month course.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it's just so obvious, but it's hard to pinpoint. But just kind of like reflecting on it now, I think that post-education, passion is probably the most important thing. You don't have to be the smartest or like the most business savvy, but you definitely have to be passionate about it, because there's going to be the early days of PT is like when you're building clientele and you're not making much money and you've got this rent over your head of, renting the space at the gym potentially, or maybe you don't have many overheads in your gym, but that probably means that there's less clientele in the gym. There's going to be weeks where you're just not making any money, and potentially losing money.
Yeah.
And I think passion can kind of override that in a way, or at least keep you going, like keep that stone in motion, as we say about momentum. I think passion's the most important thing, and actually giving a shit about what you're doing, and you're there for the right reasons, rather than you're there because it looks cool. And like being a personal trainer is like, seems like this really fun job, and it is an amazing job, but it's not for everyone. So I'd say first and foremost, passion.
Yeah.
And then kind of, I guess, like a level of like trustworthiness, because essentially these people are trusting you with, X amount of money. Most PTs charge at least $1 a minute.
Yeah.
If not, $1.50 or $2 a minute. So you're looking at like between 70 and $100 for an hour, however many times a week, whether that's 1 or 3 or whatever. Being able to trust the person that you're hiring or employing, as in they're your trainer, you want to make sure that these people are actually going to provide you the service that they have either promised or you're kind of assuming that they're going to help you with, whether that's like a weight loss goal or like nutritional change or whatever, strength increase or running programming or whatever. You want to make sure that this person is actually going to provide you with this thing. If you do everything right, you'll get to that point, and it's not going to fall because of them. Like you want to make sure it's like kind of on you, like they're giving you everything that they can, and if you abide to all these things, then you'll get to point B, wherever you want to get to. And it's not going to fail because they've given you bad programming, as in like they're not following like basic strength progressions, or they're overtraining you or really undertraining you, or their nutritional advice is really bad, or whatever. There's so many ways that it could fall. And this kind of is like a good segue to something I saw just this morning, actually, with Simon Sinek, where he's talking about SEAL Team 6 and the ideal leader or the ideal person that goes into, a SEAL Team 6, which is like a really high stress job. Like you're literally in there, like essentially fighting for your life potentially. And he says that he was talking to one of these SEAL Team 6 guys, and he drew him a graph, and it was just 2 things in the graph. There was performance and trust. And obviously no one wants the person that, we'll draw it up there if you're watching on the YouTube. Perfect. So performance is on the vertical. Perfect. You obviously, no one wants the person that is low performance and low trust.
No, not like in that corner. Yeah.
Like in the bottom left corner. No one wants that person. But you also don't want someone that is really high performance that you can't trust either. You also don't want someone that's really low performance, but you can trust them. They might be a good friend. Like you might see them at the pub for a beer or two, but they're not going to be someone that you want leading your team, especially in a high stress environment like in the SEALs.
Mm.
But you also potentially don't want anyone that is really high performance and high trust either. It's actually a little bit less. Like you almost want, and this is what Simon Sinek says, you want someone that's kind of medium performance and high trust. So someone that knows that they're maybe not the very, very best at their job.
Yeah.
Because that means that they'll still be hungry to progress and get better. And then they're not at the tippy top, like on the top echelons of whatever they're doing. So they're not content or they're not complacent. They'll want to get better. But they're fully trustworthy. And you would trust this person with your life and with your finances. So I think it's my goal is to try and be that person. I think I've always felt that way in terms of performance, where I know that I can always get better. But I've never really thought about how people feel about me in terms of trust, which is a really interesting thing. I think that given the types of things that people will tell me, regarding themselves and their vulnerabilities and their feelings and emotions and stuff, I think that people do trust me, maybe as like I'm thinking as members of the gym. But then I think maybe coaches don't trust me for whatever reason, as in the coaches within the gym. I'm not saying that specifically. I hope that they do, but I haven't really thought about it, and I haven't tried to incorporate that into my language or how I communicate with them. I think that early on, I definitely went in there as like this ruthless leader, and I was just like swinging the axe, and I was very low trust, but I think I was high performance. So I kind of demanded that level of performance, but I wasn't very trustworthy because I went in there like day one. I was like, all right, this is how we have to do stuff from now on. And that's it. Like, there's no ifs or buts. So now looking back on that, reflecting, it was always going to be a terrible decision. But there was a lot of emotion attached to it. Whereas now, having I've been, in the fitness industry for 10 years, or coming up on 10 years. I've been in the gym for over a year now. We rebranded 4 months ago, and we've kind of like settled a little bit now. And I think there's less emotion and less of that, not less passion, but there's less emotion attached to it. I'm still very passionate. I can kind of come at stuff with a more leveled head.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that's an outcome that I want to try and achieve, is maybe more of a trusting or trustworthy person. Still obviously like a high performer, but always wanting to be better. But maybe trust is something that I should try and incorporate more into like my daily language, I suppose, or the outcomes that I want to try and achieve.
I think one of the biggest
yourself on that?
It all depends on the relationship that you have, but I think one of the biggest things to identify is that performance doesn't take any time, but trust does. So you can come in and be a high performer straight away, but you've got to earn trust, especially as a leader. You've got to earn trust over time. As it like whether it be as an employee, as a leader, as a teammate, you're not just going to walk in and hey, we trust this person. Like trust is earned, and it's earned over. Some people take longer to trust, some people take less time to trust. But I think performance is a good indicator of, if we go back to that matrix or that X and Y where performance and trust, it's like you definitely want someone that can perform. Otherwise, what's the point of having them in that position or in that as a team, in that team environment? But I think trust is something, like you say, is earned. And I think it's pretty humbling to hear you get that acknowledgement from yourself. It's like, yeah, you probably came in with all the energy and all the excitement. It's like, cool, I'm ready to change and X and Y and Z, and I'm now in blah, blah, blah. And there was no, whether it be subconsciously, you hadn't really made that attempt to earn trust from people that you were affecting in terms of like lives. And I've definitely been guilty of that many times in various either relationships or working workplaces where you get so excited and overwhelmed and motivated by a situation or a scenario or an opportunity that you're all in. you're all in. Okay, I've got all this energy. I'm ready. Who's in? Like, let's do it. And people don't have that. They're not on that level with you. They it may be because they don't know you, or they haven't traveled the same journey as you, which most people haven't. So to have that inspiration or have that motivation, it's not the same. And coming from, in another motivational speaker, apart from Simon Sinek, I saw a Gary V clip the other day. It was like, how do you get your team or your staff to be as invested as you are? And it's like, they'll never be as invested in you are. They don't own the business. Like, if you want them to be as invested in you are, give them half the business. Like, you're just like, nah. So, your level of expectation needs to be adjusted accordingly. Especially when it comes to, within reason. Like, you don't want to accept less than, or, subpar performance, but you can't expect them to go home and sleep on it and sleep with the ideas that you're having and do the work on a Sunday and a Saturday night and stay in and blah, blah, blah. If it's not theirs in its entirety, because it never will be as much as the owners. But coming back to that trust performance, I don't know, like currently, I would say I'm probably not an amazing performer. I'm working on building a lot more trust with people. So I reckon I'm probably bang in the middle of that XY graph that's, charting upwards. Definitely am putting in the work to earn more trust. But I'm fully aware that it's not just a case of, hey guys, does everyone trust me completely now? Like, I'm ready. You've got to do things and apply your trade, or whatever that saying is, so that you can just, sharpen the knife over time, so that you're ready to go when people are really willing to maybe let their guard down and have that trust. I know for a fact that, there's one or two relationships in the business where I've got their complete trust. And that's really, really noticeable. It's noticeable when you have someone's complete trust, because they will kind of, you have different conversations. You have vastly different conversations with those sorts of people, as opposed to people that you're probably not quite there yet. So you have to have a different conversation where it's around expectations, or around notifying them things that they don't know. As you said, you don't know what you don't know. So if people don't know things, how do you help them level up to the point where they do? So that therefore you can trust them to complete the task, or they can trust to know that you've given them everything to complete the task.
Yeah, I think that conversation of giving someone the information that they don't know could be two really different conversations, depending on if they trust you or not. It could be
massively.
You're brand new in the business, potentially, this is actually something I really struggled with when I first started working and coaching teaching the PT qualification. I was 21, and which is obviously very young. Like, you think a lot of trainers get into the industry when they're like 18 or 19, fresh out of high school, and there are a lot of those. But I would say that's 60%.
Yeah.
Which is still the majority, but that still leaves 40% of people that are like, 35, and they want a career change. Yeah. And, they've been an accountant since they were 18, late 20s, they've been a bricklayer, or they've just come from the military or whatever. Like, we had so many different types of people. So obviously as a 21-year-old, like, I can relate to the 60% of like 18 to 20-year-olds. Cause I'm like, what's that meme where it's that, where that dude is like, hey fellow kids. And it's like this old dude with this hat backwards, skateboard. And it was kind of like, if I was any older, I think that it would have felt like that. But I actually related with these people because I was young.
Yeah. But
then also, like, teaching, for example, the now studio manager of my gym, she must have been like mid-30s. I won't give it away, Em, don't worry. She must have been mid-30s when I taught her a few years ago. Yep. And she's a mum of two with a husband, and I'm like this fresh 21-year-old. I probably would have been 23, I think, when I taught her, something like that. So there's like very little common ground. The only common ground we had was we were both from the Adelaide Hills. And so I think developing that trust that you do know what you're talking about early was massive for me. And not so much about just like, look how much I know and look at all this information and look at all this stuff that I can teach you. It was maybe talking more from an experiential level, like this is the kind of things that I experienced when I was early in PT, and this is what you might experience as well.
Yep.
And especially with them, we were, we kind of started our PT careers in the same location in the Adelaide Hills. So
Same demographic.
we had that common ground there, and it really was very relative to her, or relevant to her. So I think developing that common ground and that trust early is what really gave me that platform to maybe excel at my job, rather than just going in there and swinging my axe and like just verbal diarrhea, like all this stuff that I knew, because I literally just like almost memorized the 2 textbooks over the 4.5 years or whatever that I taught there. So I could easily just go in there and like just spill the information and hopefully something sticks. But if you haven't gained that trust early, especially like young dudes, they just switch off. Like there's no hope.
Yeah.
So developing that was crucial.
Yeah, it's an underutilized or an under spoken about trait and relationship quality to have with people. And it's not easy to gain, I don't think. I think it's often like, oh yeah, I trust them, they trust me. It's like, but to what end? Trust is a spectrum. And I think the more trust you give, the more you get, for sure. Similar to respect, potentially, but you can definitely be burnt, as I'm sure we've both experienced when it comes to trust. And you've got to build that back up over time. Like I say, it's not just, oh, okay, are you good now? Like, can you trust me again? Like, it's earned. And some people take longer, and takes various ways. It's not just like a verbal conversation, or it's in the way you carry yourself, etc., and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of that is body language, I think. And I think that kind of like full circle, coming back to what we were talking about with how we ingest our podcasts. I think that if I'm listening to information that I'm not sure about, like I listen to all kinds of podcasts. I was listening to one on Lex Friedman last night about like consciousness and I can't remember what pan something. It's like basically this guy, he says that everything has this level of consciousness, everything, like everything, not just humans and animals, but everything has like a level of consciousness. And it's a pretty alternative thought process or ideology, but he does explain it well. But obviously for something like that, where I'm like, that makes no sense, I have to watch him talk about it to gain like more of a trust, if that makes sense.
Okay.
In how his body language is like kind of portraying that thing. Same with someone that is really, they have a lot of friction in their voice, like Jordan Peterson. If I listen to him, like he annoys me. I like a lot of the stuff that he says, but his voice like irks me for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But if you watch him, he looks like a vampire. Like there's no denying that. But at least he's like really well dressed. And dude, if you look at him, 100%.
I've seen him. He's just a very well dressed man. Are all vampires well dressed?
Yeah, was who's the Dracula? Didn't Dracula wear like a tuxedo?
Yeah, tux. Yeah, no, fair call.
Anyway, not
have you ever seen Dracula and Jordan Peterson in the same room?
I mean, I haven't. Exactly.
We'll just leave that for you guys to figure out. Sorry, off track. You find him hard to hear.
Yeah, hard to listen to because he is confrontational. Like a lot of the stuff he says has so much friction to it. It's like, oh, I don't know. But if you watch him, I think that you can get his passion more like across from the like watching him and his body language and what he's about, and also listening to the words that he says, not necessarily the tone that he's using. Yeah. For some people, it's the complete opposite. People that don't necessarily choose the perfect words, but at least you know that they're meaning it in the right way. That makes a big difference. But for him, I think it's the opposite. It's like
don't listen to his tone.
He really articulates himself really well. At least with the words that he's using.
Yeah.
But his tone is just like,
he's very matter of fact. Yeah.
And Lex is kind of like that as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say, bring it back to that. I actually thoroughly enjoy listening to Jordan Peterson for that reason. Like he's just, don't fluff it. Don't give me all the buzzwords. Just here's the facts, and that's the facts.
Yeah.
And he similar to how you mentioned about Elon, like he doesn't waste words. very well read, very well read. But yeah, he does have some pretty jarring opinions. But I just like the way he delivers his information. Personally, I can listen to him. I went on a bit of a Jordan Peterson binge, I think, for a little while there. Got the book, listened to all the podcasts, caught up on everything, researched him. And I'm just like, wow, this guy's very well learned, like knows his field very well. Very well.
Better than anyone, I think.
Yeah.
I was listening to his recent one on
Joe.
Either Joe or Lex.
Yeah.
Seems to be the common theme, but
they do the rounds, yeah.
They do the same two people. The same guests kind of like float across those two. I think that they live in Texas together or something.
Yeah, okay. While they're there, hit them both.
Yeah, exactly. And and JP, he just really is a good communicator.
Yeah,
I think. And that's actually the common theme, I think, among those three names that you just dropped there: Elon, Jordan Peterson, and who was the third one you said?
I'm not too sure. I think it was just those two. I was referring to him, yeah.
And even Joe and Lex themselves. So I guess like the four. I think there was another person there, but I think that's why they're so good to listen to. Like some people are really interesting, but it's really hard to listen to them. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson was an example of that for me. He he is interesting, but he is like such a one-way street in his mind. Like he was just there to talk, and he like his ears just were not on. Like he just shut them off. And it was just all like brain to mouth, and ears were just not part of the equation whatsoever.
Yeah, okay.
And there's like a funny compilation on YouTube where it's every time that he cuts off Joe, and Joe is getting so annoyed at him, just like cutting him off constantly. Like Joe will be starting to say something, and then Neil's like this massive personality with this like really particular voice, I guess, and he just like booms over the top of him, and there's no chance. And Joe just like sits there and shuts his eyes and like clenches his fists and tries to just not yell at this guy.
I enjoy listening to Neil though. I enjoy that side of science because I have zero knowledge on it. Anything to do with other worlds and the night sky and that sort of stuff, I thoroughly enjoy it.
I think that well, obviously I know nothing about that, but I feel like Neil is very entry level. I'm sure he knows a lot, but if you go down into like some of these other scientists that talk about like black holes and is time travel like possible, and they really get into the nuts and bolts.
I think Neil is the most marketable one. He's been on all the sci-fi shows and that sort of stuff, and so people know that name and know that personality. So he probably does. Well, I don't know. I've read a couple of his books. He does know quite a bit, but
for sure, it's
probably more just like I know I'm speaking to the everyday, the layman, and he's tried to simplify it. So yeah, you can definitely go deeper. Go deeper.
I really like the esoteric though, where it's like I don't understand 40% of what they're saying, or even 70% of what they're saying. Like I get patches and I can kind of connect the dots a little bit, but I really like listening to people that are so far out in their field that it's like, man, it just opens up everything. It opens up this like brand new world for you. It's like, man, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So these guys are talking about like
theme of the day,
quantum physics and like the 11 potential dimensions and like how they're like wrapped into our world and like what they potentially look like and how they interact with each other. It's like, oh my God, man, like
brain starts hurting.
That's crazy. Yeah. I just love listening to that stuff. That's just so far out there. It's
Speaking of so far out there, should we maybe make a little mention about who next week we've got on?
You're getting good at these segues.
Yeah, we've got line them up. I write them all down before we get on.
We've got a good friend of mine, Cameron Kittle, who is a dude that I actually taught his PT qualification to, and he's a super interesting dude who knows everything about everything, it seems, and often, at least every day for this week, like since I've been unwell and had so much time on my hands, I'll just send him a question like, "What do you think about aliens?" And then he'll send me all this information on like potential sightings or like how this is just like a hypothetical, but I'll tell you like a real one in a second, and he'll expand on it in a week. But like aliens and how they interact with Egyptians and what the pyramids meant for like
I've heard about
that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. So
I'm pretty hyped to get him on and chat to him, to be honest. I think it'll be a good, not just saying this to get our YouTube platform up, but I'll definitely be asking him to share some of his insights visually. So when it comes to, you know, I have definitely heard about the Egyptians. I've actually heard about the Egyptians and the Catholics with aliens, and like, oh man, it just goes so many layers.
And the Nazis
and the Nazis. But just I'm very curious. So a bit of a conspiracy theorist. How you'd be categorizing him?
I wouldn't categorize him as anything.
Okay.
I think he's uncategorizable. That's the first time I've ever used that word, but it kind of rolled off my tongue, actually, surprisingly. But one of the funny ones actually he brought up were giants.
Mm-hmm.
And how there's been skeletons found of like potentially up to like 20 feet tall humans, and that and I'm just paraphrasing here again. He'll expand on it next week, but how I think Darwin the Smithsonian's had these bones destroyed because it would ruin like Darwin's theory of evolution or something, and it would like ruin the Bible or something like that. I don't know.
Wow.
It's so, and again, coming back to like esoteric language.
Yeah.
He knows so much about this stuff that when he talks about it, I'm like just frothing, but I don't really understand any of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having a script of a movie just like kind of written at the drop of a hat, like regardless what question it is. He would just come up with this. Well, he won't come up with it.
He would have researched it.
Yeah, it's already been researched by him. And the stuff about like Earth not being a globe, and there being like a dark sun, and the Earth is like actually a kind of a donut shape or something. I don't know. He'll explain it next week. I'm not doing this any justice, but it's going to be a good conversation. Make sure you have about 4 hours free. And also, he's a jiu-jitsu guru. He has mutual friends with Ryan's gym. He's been in jiu-jitsu for a long time, and he's a bit of a guru on there. I think he's just started back up no-gi jiu-jitsu, so kind of like wearing civilian clothes and doing jiu-jitsu. I think he was a gi brown belt, I believe.
Yeah, okay.
So very high level, which is like the one below black, I believe. So he's also very learned in that, which is cool. And yeah, man, he just knows everything about everything. It's crazy.
It'll be good to get him on. Very good to get him on. Probably going to wrap with a little bit about giving you some things to do whilst you're in ISO. So the only reason I thought of this is we went down the sci-fi path, and I actually watched a little bit of a sci-fi movie last night, June. Can recommend. Have read some of the book. It's a very big book, but love that idea of just getting lost in a different world and that sort of thing. So if anyone has things for Luke to do that are slightly less productive than maybe he would want to be, he's going to have time for that, but he's going to have at least 5 more days worth of bit of Netflix and chill alone.
Yeah. Send me a message. Luke Winrow on Instagram.
I'm
desperate for stuff to do.
Desperate. Easy. Yeah. All good, dude. Good to chat to you. Looking forward to next week. And get better soon.
Yeah, okay, man. Thank you very much.